Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We have people from different parts, particularly Arif is from UK, so good evening too. So welcome everybody for Foundation for India, Indian Diaspora Studies report and analysis on United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF. They published a report, it's an annual report, 2024 report published on the 1st of May. And there are various countries get covered, but in this context, during today's session, we will mostly be focusing on India-related report, that's analysis, and we will be comparing with the facts versus the coverage. Just to set that USCIRF is under the United States Congress IRFA, that is International Religious Freedom Act 1998. It is formed as a commission to audit and analyze religious freedom or minority statuses all over world except United States. It actually whatever the religious freedom or human rights violation, etc., might be happening in United States, it's not covered, but it covers the outside one. Right from the foundation, USCIRF has been mostly initially biased on the pro-Christian and Jewish, and then slowly, because of the allegations around that, it expanded the scope. However, as of now, we all see that it is mostly few religions and it does not represent the commissions on all the religions. And just to give that context that now India being and Hindus in particularly one in the six, but there is no representation of Hindus per se on the USCIRF commission. USCIRF commission has rabbis, it has the Christian cemeteries in charge and office bearers, also has head of Muslim Society of Virginia. However, Hindus, particularly in the United States, also is significant population, and outside one of the sixth human is actually Hindu, but still is not represented. But that's a different aspect of it. When it comes to report, there are certain things that we have seen year after year. This is, every year FIIDS and does analysis on USCIRF report and the India-related analysis. What we find is that consistently there is a omission commission thing. It means that selective presentation of some of the facts and hiding some of the aspect. Just to give an example, that in the latest report, Manipur riots, it covers that around 500 churches were destroyed. Now, these are the tribal places. This is the Manipur, in particularly hill areas. It creates notion that as if there are well-built churches are there, but the huts, wherever there is a cross, it is actually considered as a church there, because it's all tribal villages over there. And but at the same time, there are again around 378 Matai temples in the same, like homes having the deities, but they were destroyed, and mosque also, but they were not actually covered in the kind of a report. So it gives that how the partial picture actually gives that. So we'll talk more into that. Similarly, when the report get compiled, that there is no transparency on how the experts are selected. Now, when we dig up some of the background on the experts, we find that their connection with some vested interest, some of the lobbyist organizations connected with them, etc. So that complicates and also blurs and biases the report and the viewpoints. So there is no transparency on how the selection of the experts are done and the facts are presented. Third thing, that there is no collaboration or consultation on any stakeholders to get the diverse perspective on that. So year after year, when we represent and request, there is no participation from other perspective. So these are the in general context behind the USCIRF. Now we'll go to the specific USCIRF, and we are fortunate to have today that some of the experts. Now Krishna Mohan Sonti, he had originally compiled facts with a team of FIIDS. There are almost 8 different analysts from FIIDS were engaged for a few months compiling the facts independent of the USCIRF report. That was before that, to analyze that how the situation has been in particularly South Asia. And as one part of it, they covered India report. And then when the USCIRF report came, it is essentially a part of the facts that gathered from the FIIDS analysis we are presenting over here. Devashri, who is a policy analyst and liaison manager based in Washington, D.C. So she has been main editor and fact checking and adding the facts and figures around the findings and the reports. We also have Arif joined from Pakistan, sorry, not Pakistan, UK. He's originally from Karachi. He half of the life he spent, he educated in University of Karachi, then in UK, then again went back, and now he's settled in UK. So he runs a human rights portal and leading voice on the state of minorities in Pakistan as well as in South Asia. So welcome all of you. So I think let's to start with, we can go one by one from the reports. But I will first start with, since there is a some of the aspects are related to FCRA and also some of the conversions and then how the FCRA funding has been paused. So I would like to get Devashri's her findings and report analysis on that, and then probably pull in Krishna to talk about the FCRA conversion and related aspects.
Sure. Thank you so much, Khanderao. Apologies for my voice. I've been feeling under the weather. First of all, we need to understand why India or any other country would need a law like this. As per data submitted by CBI in 2015, there were more than 3 million NGOs in India. Not all of them, but more than 21,000 NGOs received foreign funding. And according to data disclosed in Parliament last year, more than 55,000 crore rupees, that is $6.6 billion, were received in foreign contributions by more than 13,000 of these FCRA registered associations or NGOs. We do understand that NGOs have been important to the country's development and disaster relief, but there has been very little purview over their foreign funding. There is also a report by Intelligence Bureau of India that has accused foreign-funded NGOs of serving as tools for foreign policy interests of foreign governments and negatively impacting the GDP by as much as 2 to 3%. FCRA has nothing to do with one particular religion's charitable NGOs. Unfortunately, the Western media and USCIRF report and the narrative have made it look like that. FCRA is no different than what we have in the US. Here, there are similar regulations governing foreign contributions, though they may not be under a single comprehensive act like FCRA, but they have FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act, FECA, which is Federal Election Campaign Act. These acts are governing different aspects of foreign contributions, including political contributions, lobbying activities, and charitable donations. Also, every non-profit, whether charitable, non-charitable, and tax-exempt organizations, they need to be registered with IRS, and they have to disclose their fundings, their spendings, and some of them they do require to disclose the information about their donors in some cases to IRS. no democratic country would want to have foreign forces meddling in their policies or national interests, national security, right? So actually, we need to take steps proactively to minimize such avenues. There have been more than, I think, around 39 countries that have enacted similar rules in last 2 decades. So definitely, this is not something about religious discrimination, but it's about foreign funding.
One aspect that they call that there are certain organizations where kind of banned. So what were the grounds of those banning? So why under the FCRA when organization get banned?
So when we look at FCRA, this was established in 1976, and many amendments have been done to this act. And in 2020, the government said that these NGOs, they need to disclose both their movable, immovable assets to government, and they need to have an FCRA account. And then they have to renew their licenses every 5 years, and they have to compile with the rules and regulations of this act. So some of the organizations that have been rejected or the licenses have been revoked because they did not comply with the rules and regulations of FCRA Act.
Okay, so mainly it seems to be that compliance issue that they are not submitting, and probably they are not submitting because there might be reasons that money laundering or using that money for the purposes which is not really allowed under that funding. So, but there is also aspect one particularly it then ties to the Christian organizations, and then the report goes to connect that to the conversion laws, anti-conversion laws. And probably, Mohan, you can throw some lights on that.
Right. So if you look at the religious conversion laws, these kind of laws exist and some sort of a protection exists for the weaker community in almost all the countries. Right. So what they're doing is in many places, it is known that whether it's in Africa and many other countries where there is a vulnerable population, in the garb of religious entities, the religious conversion, in reality, it's not about the faith that they're spreading. They're actually using that money for some sort of a nefarious activities to control the population, either to subvert the governments or subvert the country, or sometimes just exploit the resources. So there is all kinds of things that are happening. So it becomes essential that people track the money and where it is coming from. In fact, in USA, many of these groups are called, in many of the defense circles, they're called the pressure groups. So these are pressure groups, a lot of these NGOs, which come and do things other than what they state to be the objective. So in that sense, the FCRA becomes important. All that
the FCRA aspect of it, but the confusion is
conversion. So in that case, right. So in that case, it becomes imperative that the government keeps an eye on when people come here for spreading a religious faith. The government itself does not have any issue with that, but they just want to make sure that it is done in good faith and it is done for the benefit of the society and the community. And very often, these organizations don't do it in good faith. So it is that aspect that the government is trying to keep an overview on. And it is not about anti-conversion. They called it as an anti-conversion law. It is anti-exploitative conversion laws. That is the accurate word. They just don't use the word anti-exploitative conversions. Now, one important thing that we have to keep in mind is, does anyone know that in the entire Europe and all the European countries, with a couple of exceptions, they do not even recognize Hinduism to be a religion. It has no legal standing. So an entire Europe does not recognize one of the largest religion. It has no legal standing, but somehow they step into India and talk about all the anti-conversion laws and other things.
I think we can't talk about entire Europe now. In the context of USCIRF report, the narrative actually is around it. The kind of there is a omission commission aspect. The way the report is written, it shows that there is a religious freedom issue that if people who wants to practice say Christianity, they cannot practice under that. That is the narrative.
That narrative is actually incorrect, because the conversion itself has not been stopped. There is no such curbs to that. What is written in those laws is basically exploitative means of it, something that is done other than for the purpose of actually spreading their faith. Or
so that's an example that basically the omission commission, it does not state that, hey, India allows freedom of practice of any faith that one may have, however fraudulent or coercive practices to enforce or convert the people to particular one faith to another, that is prohibited. So, but the first part is missing, that is creating a impression that religious freedom is not there. So I think that is the main aspect of your finding.
It's a selective reading. Basically, they have done a selective reading of the entire event, and they just picked the anti-conversion, but they omitted the key part of it is anti-exploitative conversion. That is the only part.
I will build on it a little bit related, because there again the narrative is like this. In the Manipur riots, started in May last year, and 3-4 months it continued. It had been very gruesome in a way that almost 70,000 or more were displaced in the population, both tribal Matais and Kukis and all that thing. However, the report actually focuses as if it is a genocide. It doesn't call it genocide, but there is an outside campaign, it will call like that, but it's anti-Christian. Now, FIIDS team last year in the month of October had analyzed all the facts around Manipur, and we had presented and we had submitted the report. So I was heading that panel. So the conclusions, like on this particular report, they mentioned only the 500 places where huts having the cross were burnt out, but they called as the churches. But at the same time, missed to mention there are about 380 or something Hindu places of worships, and large number of mosques were also destroyed in both the tribal belts. So that is the example that the narrative was built as if like a anti-Christian. Now, to build on that, there is another aspect that they kind of hide. The Archbishop of Mumbai, Oswald, he mentioned that this was much more between the tribals and not between the religions. Similarly, Maitai Christian Church in a press conference July 16th, 2023 in Delhi, they mentioned that it was mostly Manipuris versus illegal immigrants because there has been infiltration and large-scale immigration from Burma or Myanmar because of the political situations or instabilities in Myanmar. And because of that, from 90s, it had been a huge conflict, whole decade. Actually, August 8, 1988, that called as 8888, there has been that the huge exodus from Myanmar, and that's it continued the impact of that between the infiltrated locals in the 90s, between Matais and Kukis and Nagas, and last couple of decades it has been much more stable. And this was triggered because one judge had passed a judgment on recommending affirmative act on Matais. So Matais were also considered as a tribals, and they had special rights before 1947. But they had lost that rights, and this judge had passed that should be included, and that created a possible conflict that triggered the possible conflict. But then it was fueled by the fake videos and other some malicious agenda. There is also drug angle to that, which is very predominant. From there, the drugs, that channel goes to the Myanmar and to the world. So drug mafias, separatists, they complicated because this was the weapons they were used in these Manipur riots. They were including AK-47 and very advanced weaponry were used. So it is not something that just community came together and or the between the conflict between the community. But all this fact was particularly hidden, and then brought up this angle as if like this is some sort of a cleansing, ethnic cleansing happening against the Christians. So that is another thing that comes from the report, is that very specifically targeted to build some narrative and to come to a conclusion around that. So that's the similar thing it comes to. That last couple of times it was around the CAA, and then this year the CAA, it wasn't brought up that much, but it's still reference is mentioned. So since and just to give the background on the CAA, it's a Citizenship Amendment Act. I felt that this act has been very poorly named. It should have been named as a religiously persecuted minorities, refugees Citizenship Act, something like that. So that, because to the nature that what it does is that the refugees from the neighboring countries, particularly from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, who came to India before 2014, this act gives the empowerment or the citizenship, and that was actually hidden. So I would like to get now here Arif's opinion on the state of minorities in Pakistan or Afghanistan and Bangladesh, particularly non-Muslim minorities, and what is the state over there. Particularly, just last week there was a report published in India that how population actually changed in last say 75 years in these countries. Like say from Pakistan, the minority population from 23% to came around 4%. From Bangladesh, it came from 20% to around 8%. At the same time, in India, it is Muslim population grew from 8% to 14%, and then overall minorities per population percentage grew while the Hindus population shrunk significantly. So that's the facts are there. But more than those statistics, what are the realities on the ground? If Arif, you can cover that, what the state of minorities on that.
Thank you. I think my mic is off.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay. Namaskar to everyone. Khanderao ji, before going to your question, first of all, I would like to have a correction that I'm not of Pakistan origin. I'm Pakistan born of Indian origin. Because Indians living here in US and UK and their 5th generation calls themselves Indian origin. So my parents were born in India and thousands of years belonging to India. My DNA is Indian, so I'm of Indian origin. The second thing is that the report you are talking about of USCIRF, it is totally biased report. There is another report circulating on social media that says that in India, since 1947, the Muslim population grew at 43% and Hindu population decreased at 7%. So if there were religious persecution in India, this would not be the case. Now, talking about Pakistani minorities, the worst situation, if any group of people is living in, it is Pakistani minorities, particularly Hindus, because Christians of Pakistan still have backing of global churches. But Hindus, they don't get backing of anyone. Thousands of girls are forcefully converted, particularly in Sindh, and they are kidnapped, raped, and then forcefully married to the rapist and forcefully converted. This is worst thing can happen to any girl, because after conversion they cannot belong to their family, their parents, and this because the parents are Hindus. So according to Islamic Sharia, they cannot associate with their families. So think about the atrocities they are facing with their husbands. They can go nowhere for shelter or for help. So this is one thing. There are Hindu businessmen in Karachi and Sindh who are regularly facing the worst situation. There is Dr. Tara Chand, who is also listening in the panel, and he is also, I think, aware of all these things that happening. I am getting regular emails from Hindu businessmen in Karachi. Last year, before 2 years, I went to Jodhpur to Pakistani Hindus who have come to India, and I went to their camps and I met one person. I asked many people many things, and I asked one person, why did you come to India? What were you doing in Karachi? He said, I had 10 shops in Karachi. I said, then what happened to you? He said, actually, I came to save my religion, my daughter and my religion, because if I stayed there, my daughter was always an easy target, my business was always an easy target. I said there was no solution. He said there was one solution, that I should recite Kalma and become Muslim. And if I am a Muslim, then I am first class citizen, no problems, my daughter will be safe, I will have more respect in the society. But I preferred to save my dharma and I preferred to save my daughters. So I migrated, I left everything in Pakistan. So the situation of minorities in Pakistan cannot be described in words or in reports, because day-to-day atrocities in Pakistan, even Mahesh Kumar, a member of National Assembly, a few weeks back, he made a speech in National Assembly, and it was so horrific that the situation he was explaining. But USCIRF report is biased, as I think that they have a bias of India. As a student of United Nations, working with United Nations since last 30 years, I have an understanding that in secularism, there is no religion preferred or given preference. Like in USA, in UK, we have secularism. We don't have Waqf board. We don't have Muslim personal law. A Muslim cannot get second marriage in UK or USA, but in India they can. So the secularism of India is also of a special kind. So these kind of reports, I don't pay attention to them.
Thank you, Arif, and thanks for correction. Actually, what you said about that Indian origin, it goes well, because many of us, most of the audience are actually here in United States. We are American citizen, but we are Indian origin, and having the culture coming from Bharat. So that's important correction that you give. Thanks for mentioning both about the minority situation in Pakistan as well as to compare with situation in India. It also goes then subsequent topic mentioned in the report. It actually, just to tell some specific words from the report, is it says that Muslims in India are undergoing continuously ongoing atrocities against them and the violences, and they cited some of the examples over there. In the two examples, one example is just some mosque getting attacked, that's one thing, and then also tying up to the cow vigilante. So in this case, what I saw is that it missing the perspective, right? It is a 1.5 billion population, and in which 14% population is actually Muslim. India is the second largest Islamic nation in the world. They did not even talk that India Muslims are prospering, growing, right? There is no existential threat exist. However, the report as if like it's giving that in India, Muslims are actually under danger. And that also part of the nexus that I was mentioning, that just to give an example, that how we actually are concerned about the USCIRF selection, etc. IAMC, that Indian American Muslim Committee, I think, or Council, had engaged and other Muslim organization, a lobbyist firm called FDR, and that FDR and some of the staffers actually are connected with that lobbyist firm. So that's how it's a nexus behind the scene that also is we are concerned about. But keeping that aside, I would like to bring Mohan. What is your analysis on the trend on the Muslim or Hindu-Muslim riots in India?
So statistically, if you look at it, right, so one of the report actually clearly shows from 1954 to 1982, there were about 7,000 to 8,000 riots, violent riots. That's about one every day and a half. And the reports also show that by 1990s, late 1990s, it has gone up by 1.5 to 2-fold. And on the same scale, it's the reports clearly show, with all the statistics in place, it shows that after 2017-18 onwards, it has reported to be the lowest that has ever been seen in the history of independent India. So whatever numbers they have come up with, if anything, this is something that we should be cherishing, that it has at the lowest point, it is described all the way to 2022 and as well as in 2023, it has been the lowest point. And with, like you've just mentioned, 1.5 billion people, yes, there's going to be some sort of issues. But if you look at the historical perspective, this is the lowest point, something the country is celebrating. And I wish USCIRF has actually looked at it in that kind of a perspective than going with a few numbers.
Yeah, that actually brought a very interesting and important perspective. Any sort of analysis, the research analysis, we being part of the think tanks, we expect that people need to be data-driven, facts-driven. And I think USCIRFs are seriously underfunded that they can't even have a data scientist. Or GATE is probably just a maths graduate or even who can do the mathematics, put together the perspective in the comparison with the overall population, overall incidences, and etc. And there are incidents. Means I was just wondering that how many gun violences happen in the schools in USA, and compare that with all the religious minority, anything alleged or even numbers in Bharat. You will see that the comparison is nowhere. But how do we brand it? That's where somewhere that data-driven, facts-based analysis, if it is not driven, or then in contrast, if it is based on some kind of a bias or agenda, then the report becomes, as Arif called that, it becomes biased. It loses its credibility. So that's one aspect I saw.
I just want to bring a number on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Khanderao, so on that perspective, right, when you mentioned about the gun violence, the actual statistics show that it's the mass shootings is more than the number of days in a year for the last several years. So even this year, if you take the number of days today, there are more mass shootings in America than the days have been done so far. In the same perspective, the number of riots, which I just mentioned is one every day and a half, has come down to more like one a week or even lesser in the entire country. I mean, how often do you hear about any kind of a riots in the country? If you hear one per week, that is a big thing. But in the past, it was one every day and a half. That's about 7,000 riots in a 28-year period. That is one every day and a half. So this is a dramatic decrease. And like I said, the report showed this is the lowest the country has ever been in the last 2 to 3 years. And it is actually declining even further from 2018 all the way to 2022. It has declined even further. In 2023, the trend show is even less than that of 22. But still, somehow, USCIRF missed the whole report.
The report also mentions actually cow vigilante, and particularly some I don't say incidences where there were attacks on the cows being carried in a trucks or anything. So, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I have the numbers as well as I have some historical information if I'm allowed to present on that. So the numbers is in the entire year of 2023, there were the number of incidents that were recorded and taken to conviction were in single digits. And out of the single digits, many of them were related to the cattle stealing. And it wasn't necessarily anything to do with cow vigilantism or some sort of a religious, or they just gave a religious spin to it. But think about it this way, India has like millions of cows. It's an agrarian country. And yes, a few incidents happened. A single digit incidence is actually very nominal. There's more crimes anywhere else in the world. Of these few single digit crimes that has happened, which were branded as vigilantism, in reality was a cow thefts and there was fights. And the very few more where it was related to the cow slaughter and things like that, any vigilantism is just a failure of the law. Right,
and all these there were some gruesome pictures about that how particularly the cows get stolen from India in the near to Bangladesh border and then moved. And there you can search on various places that on the fence they're kind of trying to carry it, or even in the river their horns were tied up and then they were floating in the river to move across the border. And there are all these examples of the stolen and the theft. That particular part was not actually called out. It actually fits into the same thing that I've been talking about. The report is full of omission and commission. They will talk about certain things and they will not put into the overall perspective of the overall number of, like say, the population or the, and it doesn't even cover the cases where it doesn't fit into the story.
In fact, those handful of cases which has happened, they had no religious angle to that, those stolen cases and all that, but somehow they clubbed a couple of incidents that have happened, and as a matter of fact, all the vigilante cases, the charges have been filed and they are in prison. There's convictions going on for that, for taking the law into their own hands. But those numbers are too small. They're like even just not even countable. So what the USCIRF did is all the stolen and any other things that have happened, anything related to cow, any news related to cow, they just clubbed everything under one group just to inflate the numbers. And even that number is very small.
That goes to the, again, next narrative in place is about love jihad, and which is a very kind of a term it is commonly now used. It originally was floated by a Christian pastor, and then it basically picked up others, because this is the case where Hindus or Christian girls were kind of lured into the love and then got converted, and subsequently some of them actually even murdered, and all that cases also came into that. Now in this context, actually I want to, because I heard a lot about the London, that the whole grooming, sex grooming or something, and now Arif is from UK, so I would like to get his perspective and some of the information around that before we actually go to the actual further on love jihad part.
Well, Khandaraoji, in UK also the Muslim activities is similar to in India. Now this report does not speak about slit of throat, which went to many Hindus but not to single Muslim in India. There are so many religious processions of Muslims like Rabiul Awwal, like Muharram and all this. They all go peacefully. But when Ram Jayanti comes, like Hanuman Jayanti comes, Diwali, they have stone pelting on Hindus. So in fact, Hindus are in more danger in India than Muslims. Similarly, in UK, Muslim population is 5 to 6%. But majority cities have Muslim mayors. Birmingham, UK, Bradford, and so on, Oxford, Cambridge. So Muslims have a special way to operate. In UK, we see the protests. In UK, there are special grooming gangs who target white girls, Hindu girls, and Sikh girls, because there are so many Sikhs, about 800,000 to 1 million Sikhs living in UK. So their daughters are targeted at very young age. And there is a report that in last 20 years, since 2000, 24 years, there are more than 1 million girls. They were targeted and sexually harassed. And the harassment does not go to that. At very young age, 13, 14 years, they are targeted, they are groomed and drugged and then blackmailed and often sent for business to East Europe and onward. So the situation here is very bad. We are facing, for example, people like me are in more danger because we speak openly about it. And we are not afraid to tell the truth. And when I went to security forces here to get protection, that look, I'm receiving threats and all these things. And they said that, why are you putting your family in danger? Why don't you stop your activities? Now, I'm living in a free society. Why should I stop my activities if I'm doing something illegal? The state, the law enforcement will stop me or persecute me. But if I'm not doing anything illegal or wrong, or I'm not spreading fake stories, then why should I stop? Why don't I get protection here? But we see on the streets of London now, this is weekend, Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday, entire London will be occupied by these extremist protesters. The situation here, we have a fear that we will have a labor Prime Minister in January elections because Conservatives have been weak. And once Labour Prime Minister is in UK, we will have a very bad situation. And the things are going towards a civil war, what I fear. Because unless they bring their army on the streets, police is not capable of handling it because police is under Muslim mayors of UK cities.
So thanks. The situation seems to be very kind of dangerous in UK than even actually in Bharat or in USA, particularly in the sex grooming side of it in this case. In this particular report, it actually calls how they ties. It's actually very much. I feel that they are using some chat GPT or something that very generative, very kind of innovative, imaginary kind of fabrications are happening in the chat GPT. What we call hallucination. So they actually have the report has some glimpses of such kind of hallucinations. So now it said that anti-conversion laws increasingly included provisions designed to prevent interfaith marriages and so-called love jihad. So the way it is now, you want to talk anything, Mohan, on that?
Yes. So actually, as a matter of fact, there was just to put the statistics on here, right? So a cursory look about how many convictions have happened and related to the murders. In the form of, we have to understand love jihad, the issue is related to, like in the UK, it's got to do with the conversion. Hindus don't have any idea of conversions, right? So the marriages, they eventually lead to conversion. And if a woman refuses to convert, even before marriage or after marriage, there are a lot of instances where she has been murdered. And many of the cases very gruesome, cut into pieces. So a cursory look at how many were convicted and the murders, just the 2022 number, it's not even the comprehensive number, just for one region, was about 26 to 30 of them in 2022. For the same region, in part of, say, for example, Uttar Pradesh, when they brought in these laws, the love jihad, the law is about, if there is a crime happening to a community, all that it says is, let's be a little more vigilant and just keep an eye on it. That's all it says. It does not prevent people from falling in love and marrying. All that it says is, let's keep an eye on what is happening. And when this law was passed in 2023, that number actually dropped to like 6 or 7 at most, from about 30 for the same region. So it's because when these things are happening, now they know that somebody is keeping an eye on it. It will not be passed along as some murder happened at some place and just brushed under the carpet. So that was the actual benefit. We could see the tangible number change in just one small region where it was 30 actual murders, gruesome murders, slitting throats to cutting to almost multiple pieces. From that kind of murder, it went down to 7, from 30 to 7. Now imagine in an entire country if you could do that, right? So this is tangibly provided a benefit. So I don't see this love jihad. I think they gave a whole entirely different spin to it. It's almost like even in US, if somebody says a community is in threat, if government takes it under the purview and says, hey, let me see what is happening, I think it should be a welcome move. I think quite the contrary, they made it, they spun it around as if it's something bad that is happening. In fact, it's very good that murders happen and the government says, I'll keep an eye on it. I mean, that should be a welcome move, I think.
So here actually, one aspect that I kind of felt of the report is, so nowhere in that love jihad, means keeping the facts one thing, one aspect, but nowhere in the love jihad case, the anti-conversion law was enforced. Actually, 2 cases were filed by the parents of the girls, right? In one case, girl opted that I want to continue, another goes a different way. But nowhere it was anti-conversion law was enforced. However, that to fit in the narrative that there is an anti-conversion law which is actually prohibiting, but it's more to that connect to the conversion, Christian conversion aspect or etc. But this time to highlight the fact that anti-conversion law is in getting enforced in these cases. So that's a another narrative that comes out is around the 370 article abolition of that, and then it says that. It does say that some facts that in December Supreme Court of India upheld the abolition. It does say, and then it goes that Indian government is actually continues to detain and harass journalists, religious leaders, and human rights, and etc. So nowhere then it actually talks about what actually 370 has brought onto the table, but then without any examples, etc., it continues that the narration. So Devashri, you want to add on the 370, what actually has been the state currently after the 370?
Yes, definitely. I think by far we have established that they have nothing, like not a fact-based report. They're just an opinion-based report. They just say that Kashmir is a Muslim majority state, and abrogating 370 is like harassment on Kashmiris. But they do not, what they don't talk about is the move was celebrated all over the India. Not only India, Indians living outside India, they really celebrated this move. They don't talk about the women's right before abrogating 370. Previously, the permanent resident certificates to women were only valid till their marriages. And after, if they get married to someone out of state, then they were denied education, employment, their property even. They were denied of these rights there. And then the report doesn't talk about what happened in last 4 years. When we talk about, I have an example, in 2011, Prime Minister at that time, Dr. Mohan Singh, he held a rally in Kashmir Valley, and the internet was shut down for his rally in Kashmir. But similarly, 2 months back when Prime Minister Narendra Modi went there for his rally, internet services were not shut down. That is an example how Kashmir has become peaceful. Then the report doesn't talk about how the many Western media said that, after this move, the situation on ground is really going to get worsened. But they are far from the reality, what is going on there. Actually, the overall law and order situation, the incidences of violence have drastically reduced. The number of Kashmiri youths joining terrorist ranks has fallen by more than 40%. Huge increase in tourist activity, tourism industry is recovering there. I mean, the tourist influx was 20 million last year. That is, I think, double than what that was in 2018. That was 7.7 million. Even G20 summit was held there, and foreign delegates could see for themselves that how it's been, the valley has been peaceful. And then again, important, when they said that it's Muslim majority state, we consider them as citizens. So the gross citizens of India, the gross state domestic product has more than doubled to 2.25 lakhs as compared to 1 lakh crore. I mean 2.25 lakh crore then compared to 1 lakh crore. So there has been huge investment going on in Kashmir Valley. The infrastructure is growing. Foreign investments are coming. So they don't talk about all these things, that how this abrogation of 370 has changed the Kashmir Valley. And they can go online and check for themselves. There are so many videos and interviews of Kashmiri people talking about how the life there is prospering and how businesses are getting better. I don't know how they don't.
Thank you. So I think you covered how it actually helped the Byandar's community. I would like to get Arif his view on this point. Yeah.
Thank you, Khandaraoji. Actually, the situation is reverse. Now, Pakistani security forces are killing Kashmiris in POK since last 5 days. Hundreds are arrested. Shops are closed. Shutter down strike is going on since last 4 days. And since 1947, Pakistan Army says that we need to buy weapons to fight a war with India to liberate Kashmir. Now those very weapons bought from our civilian budget is used against Kashmiris in Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. It is because that now, due to internet, the Kashmiris of POK can compare themselves with Kashmiris of Union Territory Jammu and Kashmir, and they see that how the infrastructure is developed there, Would you believe me, there is not a single developed road in POK. There is no university, there is no airport, there is no medical college. The students of POK, they have to travel to Karachi, Lahore to study. Now, when they compare with Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and they say that, oh, we were supporting this Pakistan, and the resources of POK is exploited. Electricity is being produced in POK, exported to Punjab at cheap rate. The very people of POK are getting it most expensive in Pakistan. They are the producers of electricity. Kashmir has crisis of water. Would you imagine that? So this is the situation of Kashmir. USCIRF should look like this, that what is the situation of Union Territory and what is the situation of POK. People have no flour to make bread. Now this is Pakistan.
It's unfortunate state. Means one is that what the state in the Pak occupies Kashmir, as well as the how misrepresentation in the report. Both ways are there. But POK discussion, I think we should have a panel sometime later. We can get some Gilgit-Baltistani origin people also. But it seems that Mohan raised hand. So you want to add anything, Mohan?
Yes, actually, I think USCIRF report actually has not even done the most basic fundamental research, because here are some of the basic statistics, right? Compared to this, Article 370 was removed in 2019, given around August to December timeframe, and it was completely abrogated in some sense. So in 2018 statistics, it turns out the stone pelting, which caused serious injuries to people, the number reported is around 1,300 to 1,500 of them. And in 2023, the number is 0. It is 0. There hasn't been a single stone pelting in Kashmir. So from 1,300 to 1,500 going to 0. And in 2019, it's already come down to like very small numbers, and then it went to 0. Something the USCIRF report, if they had done the most basic research, they would have seen it. Again, 2018, before removing the Article 370, the number of terrorist activities there of major incidents was around 228 or 230 of them. And in 2019, right after the abrogation, 2019 and 2020, it came down to 40. That is cutting down by 1/6. I mean, if these numbers, the dramatic change in improvement, and one more thing was, today's investment, the foreign investment in Kashmir is about 85,000 crores that is coming in, which in dollar amount is about $10 billion. Of which 1 billion is already invested, and the infrastructure development is going on at a breakneck speed. I mean, essentially, you're ignoring, it's almost like they ignore that entire elephant, glorious elephant sitting in front of them, and then talking about something else. I mean, they have to deliberately not see anything at all to write that kind of a report about abrogating 370.
Yeah, I think overall we are getting at the end of the hour. I would like to kind of summarize our sentiments that the USCIRF report is biased. It is full of omission and commission. It selectively presents certain facts and then hides a lot of the details. It also misses the contextualizing it. It is presented as it is. It creates a different narrative, but if it presented in the context of overall population, historical context, or regional context, then it will actually, the outcome or the narrative would be a different narrative. It also takes very few isolated incidences and try to generalize it and make it as if like it's a phenomena across the India. So such kind of things definitely fall short of any kind of scholarly analysis. It can only be come out if it is something driven by a specific bias or specific agenda. And that's why it is this panel, at least the FIIDS, reject the USCIRF recommendation to include India as recommend as a CPC, country of particular concerns, and put in line with Nigeria and Azerbaijan and Afghanistan. These are the 5 countries they have added in this one. So it is to a country of 1.4 billion population, one of the largest democracy in the world, and to put into a CPC, which definitely we reject that recommendation, and our recommendation to the Department of State is going to reject the USCIRF report on particularly on India. There are few things that I want to say, and I'm going to come on record and going to write to the USCIRF and as well as the Speaker of Congress and Minority Leader, Speaker of Congress Mike Johnson, and then Minority Leader Representative Hakeem Jeffries, because they have power to appoint new commissioners. The commissioners are going to get retired in the month of May. I would like to request them, just like other religious traditions are represented by the religious leaders of those, or at least the stakeholders. We would like to recommend the same thing when it comes to Indian origin tradition in particular, general, but Hindus in particular. Second thing, that we would like to have a transparency in the selection of the experts. When the experts, that there is no transparency around that. The third is that we would like to recommend them to consult all the stakeholders to bring the diverse perspective, at least on a panel when they discuss. They can have their own conclusions, but right now we are not on table, and that is where we would ask a seat on the table to present the facts. So diverse perspective is a democratic right, and that needs to be brought up. Otherwise, hiring or inviting experts who are biased or having some vested agenda would not only result into a biased report, but would also undermine the value of the US report and credibility of an organization. Any think tanks, if they analyze that, who understand the contextual, historical, regional, and the statistical data, they would see that this report or the conclusion particularly do not match with their finding. And that is going to be a biggest disservice that USCIRF would be doing to the mandate that they have received from the United States Congress under the Act of IRFA. So I will pause here. The recording will open for the questions from the participants, but before that, we'll just pause the recording. Thank you, everybody.